If you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos.
Aloha, our keto friends. We are very excited to be here, and we wanted to talk to you about fasting 101 because there are a lot of different types of fasts, and Craig and I, we like to take walks and talk about the different types of, keto things out there, and this was one of them we were talking about yesterday, and we're like, we should talk to everybody else about these too. And there are so many different types of fasts. The most common one, wouldn't you agree, is intermittent fasting, Craig?
Yes, and what's interesting is a lot of people, when they talk about fasting, a lot of times they don't give the context. And so they'll say, you don't lose lean mass when fasting, and then it turns out they're talking about intermittent fasting, which that's very different type of fasting. So that we want to be really clear about what type of fasting we're talking about. We're
going to talk about intermittent fasting. We're going to talk about extended fasts. We're going to talk about fat fasts, and we're going to talk egg fasts, and then we're going to talk about protein-sparing modified fasting, and we're going to talk about what foods are included in each one, and we're going to talk
where they're applicable,
right?
And which when do you want to do these different types of fasts,
and the benefits and downsides of each one. So let's start with intermittent fasting. Craig, you want to talk a little bit about that?
So intermittent fasting is really just time-restricted eating. Mm-hmm. So you're just instead of The Onion had a great article a while back that said, the average American now eats one continuous meal per day.
The Onion is a satire magazine.
It's a satire. It's hilarious, but
it's kind of true.
It's kind of true. You constantly feeding. We'd always go to the zoo and
take our kids there.
Take our kids. We walk around. Our boys eat 3 meals, and
we didn't even bring snacks.
Maybe an evening snack if they need it, and that's it. And yet, every single kid in a stroller or walking was, crackers. Or it's constantly feeding, And, I think part of being keto or this lifestyle, intermittent fasting becomes a natural part of the process. It's not even really something that you have to focus on.
It's actually healthy to not wake up being hungry. If you're so hungry when you wake up in the morning that you're almost nauseous, that's a sign of diabetes. So you really want to be kind of aware of that.
Blood sugar issues,
yeah.
So intermittent fasting is basically restricting the amount of time you spend consuming calories during the day. Now this could be 8 hours or less, 6 hours or less, or all the way down to 1 meal a day, OMAD, where you eat just 1 meal for that day. That's intermittent fasting.
And the way you do it depends on how it works for you. Like for me, I always did more of a morning type eating routine. So because I like to work out in the morning, so my first meal would be closer to 9:30 in the morning, and then I would close the window at 3:30, and then the kitchen was closed. There was no more eating. Now I have opened that up a bit, but obviously not trying to lose weight or anything like that. But in my earlier stages of trying to lose weight, that was what I did.
And that's where intermittent fasting can be a great application, is when you start talking about, I'm trying to lose weight. And so this is a tool that can help you restrict. So just naturally by the body, by preparing and eating 3 separate meals compared to just doing it twice. Number one, a lot easier because you only have to prep and clean twice. Yeah. But also you're just naturally probably going to eat a little less because again, it's back to that snacking routine. Snacking is mindless. You'd eat way more calories than you would if you didn't.
Well, when you're eating keto, your blood sugar is much more stable.
So you don't require
you will get hungry, but it's not hangry. I remember in my past life, lunchtime would come around and be I'd be so hangry. But now when you're hungry, it's manageable. It's oh, I could eat, I could not eat, I'm fine,
And so intermittent fasting is a nice tool for helping you lose weight. And if that's one of your goals, implementing a restricted eating window can help with that.
Now, don't make this mistake. A lot of people that I consult, they'll say, oh, Maria, I intermittent fast. I don't eat until 1 or 2 p.m. and then I eat again at maybe 7 p.m. And I ask, did you have a bulletproof coffee in the morning? And they're like, well, yeah. That broke your fast.
Yeah, eating that many calories is going to negate any of the benefits of time-restricted eating. So intermittent fasting is best done with water only outside, and then eating all your food within 6 hours or so or less.
One of the biggest benefits, you said benefits. One of the biggest benefits of intermittent fasting is you're closing the window so your body can focus on healing other parts of its cells. If you're always digesting food, it can't heal other parts of your body. It's always focused on that.
So it does increase autophagy a little bit. Autophagy is the body's process for breaking down old, failing cells into their parts and building new ones. This is something that happens all the time in the body. By restricting the time that you're eating, it creates a little more time where the body can do more of this autophagy. So there are some, metabolic benefits there.
Some of the foods that you can eat during intermittent fasting, anything. It's really anything. People can intermittent fast eating carbohydrates and junk and all of that. It's just restricting the window of eating. That's basically what it is intermittent fasting. And
there's a little bit of goals to this too. If your goal is not to lose weight, you don't strictly have to do intermittent fasting to be keto. Mm-hmm. You can open it up, and if it works better for you to spread your meals out when you're in maintenance, that's totally fine too.
Right. It's just a tool. Should we move on to the extended fast?
Yes.
All right. Extended fasting is super popular right now. There's a lot of even companies encouraging long-term fasting. This is something that I never did. I tried it. I didn't like it. I didn't sleep good. I like to be very, very active. But even when I was twice my size, this long-term fasting was just not for me. But it's where you restrict eating for longer than 24 hours.
Yeah, so extended fasts are eating nothing, no calories, for longer than 24 hours. In general, if your goals, again, goals are important. What's your why? If your goals are fat loss, just metabolic health like diabetes, insulin resistance, if those are your goals, we don't really recommend fasting longer than 24 hours. There are negatives to fasting longer than 24 hours, and one of the biggest ones is losing lean mass. I'll put a study, below this video that shows clearly that if you don't start out keto, you're gonna lose about 1.33 pounds of lean mass per day in the first couple days. Once you get keto adapted, there's a protective effect on lean mass, but you still, even once you're keto, will lose about 1/4 pound of lean mass per day. 1/4 pound of muscle is not something to take lightly.
It's hard to gain that.
And especially if you're trying to reverse insulin resistance. One of the biggest things to reverse insulin resistance is not only, of course, lowering your carbohydrates, but also shrinking fat mass while gaining lean mass. That will shift and reverse type 2 diabetes the fastest. And extended fasting, you may shrink your fat mass, but you're also going to shrink your lean mass a bit. So it's not going to be as beneficial as something like protein-sparing modified fast, which we'll talk about later.
The foods included in extended fast: water, salt, electrolytes. Those are encouraged during extended fasting. Technically you could have coffee. For me, coffee raises my blood sugar, so that wouldn't be recommended, but certainly bone broth is not considered.
If you're drinking a lot of bone broth, that can, any digestion is going to interfere with the process of autophagy.
Why you would want to do it.
Which autophagy increases, more when you do longer fasting, as well as apoptosis, which is apoptosis, instead of breaking cells apart and rebuilding them, it just kills bad cells. Now, this is where longer fasting can be beneficial. And this is really the only areas we recommend it, which is things like cancer. There was a woman who had a chronic heart condition, stiff heart. And over doing a 4 or 5 day fast, alternating weeks, she was actually able to reverse that. It's breaking down those failed cells and building new ones.
So in those cases, we do recommend that.
But then the really important part there in that process is the refeeding. Mm-hmm. You must have lots of amino acids to rebuild after.
Where do amino acids come from?
Animal proteins.
Animal protein.
They're the most complete. So,
yes.
So that's, longer fasting. If it's for a chronic condition like that, like cancer, there can be some application there.
Right.
But the rest of us, I don't really see a benefit that outweighs the negative of losing the lean mass for fasting longer than 24 hours.
Yeah, the majority of people try long-term fasting for weight loss, and we have some better tools for that.
And if you're thinking, well, what about the autophagy that ramps up? Well, guess what ramps up autophagy just about as much as long-term fasting?
Lift some weights, man.
Strength training. So if you do strength training, you're stimulating a lot of autophagy. So if you wanted to stimulate autophagy, strength train instead, and you not only won't you lose lean mass, but you'll gain some.
You know, I get picked on all the time for being small, but you know what? I lift a lot of weights and I'm strong. See that? Come on now. And that's because I believe that instead of the extended fasting, I did a protein sparing modified, or I called it a pure protein day. We'll get to that next, but we're going to talk about fat fasts, okay? Fat fast is a very common fad right now, along with egg fasts. We'll kind of tie these together. The problem with fat fasts is that, well, the people love it because guess what? The scale shows that they lost weight. But guess what happens then? And they love it because their ketones rise. But guess what happens? You lose a lot of lean mass because you cannot build lean mass with fat. It's just impossible, people.
And so what's happening there is now you're getting calories. So you're not getting all the autophagy and those benefits that you would from a longer term fast for things like cancer, etc. So you're getting calories, and it's all fat calories, like a fat fast. And so you're not really helping with fat loss because you're adding all this fat. Only thing that's been restricted compared to say a well-formulated keto diet is protein. Well, now you're not eating protein, and so you're going to lose lean mass, and that shows up on the scale. Muscle is
you
more
lose it
dense.
fast, yeah.
But it's not what you want. Again, it's the opposite. Maintaining fat while lowering lean mass. That's the opposite thing you want to do for reversing metabolic syndrome
And long-term health, yeah.
And long-term health in general.
Your bones and everything.
So we don't ever recommend fat fasts.
Here's another big problem. It's devoid of nutrients. The most nutrient-dense foods, fat fasts. The most nutrient-dense foods are animal proteins and organ meat. And when you're not eating that, I'm a butter lover myself too. Let's put that out there. But the nutrients in butter versus like a steak, it's very. We'll
put another link below here that shows you the nutrients
in the charts,
in the fat compared to an egg or bacon even.
Yeah.
So you're not fat fast. You're not getting vitamins and minerals. It's a very low nutrient density food as well.
An egg fast. How many eggs do you have to eat to?
It's a good way to get sick of eggs, I think.
Well, I love eggs. I have eggs every day. However, to get enough eggs to get muscle protein synthesis, isn't like
14 eggs a day,
depending on how much lean mass you have. It's a lot of eggs.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the extended fast in your liver.
Yes. So potentially you could put a little back to the extended fast.
Yeah. You
could put a little more burden on your liver to produce cholesterol because your body needs a certain amount of cholesterol every day to make healthy hormones. All sex hormones are made from cholesterol. And when you're not eating any cholesterol, the liver has to make the cholesterol. So you're actually putting an additional load on the liver to make enough cholesterol for the body's needs and for hormone production and all that. So that's another possible negative of long-term fasting. Okay,
now we're going to talk about protein-sparing modified fast, which is honestly my favorite. It helped me shrink my body in half. And in the past, I called this a pure protein day. And I would, it was well before kids, so I don't know, 15 years ago, I would call this a pure protein day. And then I got kind of like slapped on the hand by these keto people saying, too much protein turns into sugar, Maria. You can't do that. You can't recommend that. And you need to have fat. And I was like, so maybe a pure protein and fat day? So I started listening to these external voices, and Craig's like, you need to do what works, because guess what happened when people started doing pure protein and adding a lot of fat? They started gaining a lot of weight.
They didn't see the results.
They didn't see the results that they did when I, as well as clients, did pure protein days. It's now called a protein-sparing modified fast. That's what the term is called. And this is great for keeping your muscle mass and shrinking the fat cells. Because guess what? If you consume a lot of dietary fat, you don't need to use your own body fat for fuel. Because the body doesn't like any sort of excess fuel, right? It's like a car, Craig always talks about.
Yeah, it's a good analogy. But so let's start out by framing this as dietary fat that comes in the diet only has 3 places it can go. There's only 3 metabolic pathways. One is the simplest, which is it doesn't get absorbed and goes right out through you. Now, some fat does end up in the stool, but the studies have shown, and I could put another link below of a study that showed that varying dietary fat from like 90 grams a day to like 170 grams a day had zero impact on the amount of fat in the stool. It was always less than 10 grams of fat in the stool. So not much is going out that way. If it did, you would have some issues. There was actually a company called
Wow Chips.
Wow Chips back in the 80s. It was Olestra or Olean. It was this fat that wasn't
we all
digestible.
tried them. Raise your hand if you tried them.
It wasn't
Raise your hand.
It wasn't digestible, and so it did go right through you. And guess what the label they had to put on it? They had to say that, warning, this could cause anal leakage. Not something that any of us want. So if a lot of fat's going through the stool, you're going to have some serious, you're going to be running to the bathroom a lot. So it doesn't go that way. So what happens now is it gets absorbed, right? That's the only other place it goes from the gut. So it gets absorbed into the bloodstream. A normal blood is right now we're sitting, so we're not doing anything, is about 30 total calories of glucose, ketones, and free fatty acids in the blood at in a sedentary situation. That's not many calories. And so if you're eating a meal with 50 or 100 grams of fat in it, you're flooding the blood with 1,000 calories of fat. So it has to take that and do something with it. Too much glucose in the blood can kill you. Too much fat in the blood can kill you. Too much ketones in the blood can kill you. The body likes to tightly control the blood vessels, just like a car. You don't want to put too much gas to the engine. You're going to blow it up. So it tightly controls how much fuel is getting to the engine. The blood, our blood vessels are very much the same. The body tightly controls it. So it uses oxidative priority to say, okay, I've got to store this off, and I'm going to do it in the priority in reverse order of storage capacity. Well, easiest thing to store for the body is fat. Mm-hmm. So what happens is the fat comes in and is digested. It's a chylomicron. It's a big lipid particle, and it goes into the bloodstream, and it can either be burned in the muscle, which not much of it is really, or go into fat cells and stored. So that's where dietary fat's going. It's going into your fat cells. Now, you have this process called fat flux where there's always fat going in and coming out of your fat cells, even when you're not keto, but it ramps up a lot when you are keto, this process. And so going in is dietary fat, coming out are free fatty acids, which can be burned by the muscle directly. So if you're exercising, a lot of fat's going to come out of the fat cells and get burned in the muscle. If you're eating a big, really high fat meal, a lot of that's going to go right into storage. And all fat loss is all about getting into negative fat flux, where your less fat is going in than is coming out. So you want more fat coming out than going back in. We're not saying no fat. We're not saying no fat, but we are saying don't drink your butter. Yeah, don't have bulletproof coffees. Don't do those kind of things that are kind of the bad keto advice that's out there. If fat loss is the goal, then moderate the dietary fat, and that is the power of a protein-sparing modified fast. And this is where this isn't something that you do every single day. We recommend to do it 2 to 3 days a week, where what you do is you dial the protein up, you turn the fat dial down to about 30 grams, which is great for hormone health. It's great for absorbing vitamins and minerals, but we're not drinking butter. We're choosing leaner cuts of steak versus a ribeye. Yeah, even a lot of the experts like Dr. Finney and Dr. Neiman say that the body needs a minimum of about 30 grams of fat per day to produce healthy hormones, to absorb fat-soluble vitamins and all of that. So a protein-sparing day is about 30 grams of fat, a little more than your normal protein goal for protein to help with satiety, and little or no carbohydrates. Well, even eggs have a carbohydrate, so you're going to get some, like carbs. Liver has some, scallops have some. Usually about 5 to 10 grams of carbs. But we're not doing excessive amounts of vegetables, no fruits, that type of stuff. So back to oxidative priority, you get enough protein, so you build lean mass. So comparing this and contrasting it to a extended fast, you're losing lean mass. This, you're maintaining it, if not building lean mass, while limiting the fuels. Carbohydrates way down, fat down. So as less fat is going in the diet, you have less fat going into the fat cells, part of the fat flux, and then it forces the body to pull more out of storage and use it for fuel.
And this is something that I did all the time. It was not every day of the week, but it was 2 to 3 days. And then I would eat my regular keto, and I even did an overfeeding day. It wasn't a cheat day, but I would add in extra calories of both fat and protein those days, just kind of have a higher calorie day. And it was kind of just like mixing with my body, and it worked really, really well.
Well, we've had clients that have done protein sparing modified fasts,
and they were stuck forever.
Broken year-long stalls by doing protein sparing modified fast days. And again, it's, you know, a tool for fat loss. You do it a couple days a week, anywhere from 1 day a week to maybe 3, at most 4 days in a week, and mix it up with regular, you know, keto macros the other days. But it's a tool. If you're very lean and you don't have a lot of fat to lose,
this isn't for you.
This is not a tool for you to use.
No.
This is a fat loss
if you're
tool.
Doing keto for fertility, this is not for you. If you're doing keto for epilepsy, this is not for you.
Yep.
If you have cancer, this is not for you. This is for this is a weight loss tool to build muscle, lose fat. I want to say that I've been asked to write books for like bariatric patients with recipes and meal plans for them. This is perfect for them because you're getting the most nutrient dense protein without whey, which I'm not a fan of. Those bariatric patients always come to me. They're just drinking whey shakes.
Well, they can't eat a lot because of size, but they
like,
need more protein because of absorption
nutrients.
issues. Is a perfect tool for them.
It is a perfect tool for them. There's a free calculator that we have at mariamindbodyhealth.com. If you search calculator, it will come up. You will get your macros perfect for a keto diet and then protein sparing modified fast days. And it's totally free. You can enter that. And
you can get our brand new The Art of Fat Loss. It's a cookbook. It's got some information about how to do a protein sparing modified fast. But then there's amazing recipes, a month of meal plans integrating protein sparing modified fast.
Is like my go-to dinner. I love breakfast for dinner. The French toast is amazing.
And so it's a new book that we just launched that's great for if you just want to take all the guesswork out, just follow the meal plans.
Why is it so easy for me to promote other people, other women, but to promote my own stuff is difficult. But I also wanted to say too, so what is allowed on a protein sparing modified fast? It would be leaner cuts of protein, more egg whites versus yolks. My pure protein bread would be perfect for that. You can make sandwiches with that. But in the sandwich, you would choose like ham instead of bacon if you do pork, you know, turkey, chicken, any fish is very lean, but collagen, seafood, collagen does not count towards your protein goal because collagen does not have a complete amino acid profile. So that's just a whole different subset. I would prefer that people eat real protein.
And that's in general too, not just on protein sparing. Collagen is not a complete protein. It doesn't help build lean mass. So don't count it in your protein goal.
Never, yeah. It's not a bad thing. I mean,
it's great to add.
If you want to add it, you can add it.
Joint health, skin health, hair.
But you don't have to add it. With any fast, I mean, I always would consider, you know, water, salt, electrolytes for sure to help you along the way. And that's covered in the, I'll say it, it's in the book. Yes. You get actually like a whole idea of what supplements I recommend to help with energy while you're fasting. A bunch of different ones are in there for help, tips on sleep, that type of stuff.
So that's fasting as a whole, and make sure you understand which version you're talking about and which version is best for you based on your goals. And I think that's the most important thing with this, is to eliminate some of that confusion about this fasting, that fasting, and what's good and not for different goals. And
if you're not interested in a book, I have thousands of free recipes at mariamindbodyhealth.com. We're always doing giveaways, just different tips and tricks are there. I'm actually working on a very important blog post on natural cures for depression. It's something that I work with and suffered from. So check it out if you're interested. Otherwise, we do have the book. So anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right, mahalo everyone.
Sharing is caring. Share this video with your friends.